When looking at if a game is successful from its player count and sales, you need to kind of look at all of the stuff surrounding the game to get a gauge on that. You can have a really great game that just doesn't sell well, but for these companies, especially the big ones like EA and bioware, they need hits, and sadly in the case of Dragon Age the Veilguard, we are faced with a title that is not good at all, disrespectful to its legacy and fans, and it would appear that based on the lower launch and current player count, and not even being able to hit 100,000 players the day and weekend it came out, the lack of any sales praise being pushed forward for this game, stating that it sold like over 1 million copies in its first week or something like that, now offering up the character creator for free for anyone to try too. If you start putting together what the media reports about related to this game, and what they are not reporting on, it can be very revealing into the potential success or failure of this title. Recently, there was an interview conducted by Eurogamer with the directors of the game. In here, it reeks of damage control to save face of bioware and maybe the Dragon Age brand, but I think the damage has already been done. I am not going to cover the entire article here, but rather discuss some parts of it. During the article, they discuss how each of the Dragon Age games have their own sort of DNA, meaning that because each one is different, the series is going to have a diverse set of players, sort of poking at why people were mad about how Veilguard was compared to the other titles. There is some truth here. Yes, the Dragon Age games do feel different from each other, but they have this through line that makes the series Dragon Age, if that makes any sense. I find this part of the discussion kind of disingenuous, because it feels like a way for these creatives to just hand-wave off people who did not like the game, because it was different than the others, because all of the games are different. I think as a Dragon Age fan myself, stuff that I would expect from this series is an interesting story, well done characters, in a dark fantasy setting, choices that make me think about my actions, and maybe want to return back to the game again to see how things could have been done differently. Tactical combat along with more key ingredients to Dragon Age. This can even come from returning characters as well, like say Varric. But with Veilguard, you have a game that works to not provide that to the player, along with not having true choice. Again, where are all the jerk options? While Dragon Age 2 had more of an action focus with the console version, the PC players still had more tactics options in that game. Even with Inquisition, they were trying to invoke some of that Origins feeling again. But with Veilguard, it's practically an entirely different thing. So yes, the games do have differences, but when you have a game like Veilguard that does not and honestly tries to not have those elements from the prior games, then at that point, do you really even have a Dragon Age game there? There is a part in the article as well that sort of shows a defeatist kind of mentality. One of the directors is like the reality was whatever they came up with. It was never going to match the Dragon Age 4 in people's minds and people's imaginations. I do think this is a bit of an unfair comment to even say about the game, and it's such a weak excuse for your poor execution. Part of the reason people might have those expectations is because it took you 10 years to make a new game. That's a bioware problem, not on the fans for waiting on you to make a new game. Another factor is that with any sequel, sure, for some of it might not measure up, but I'm sure as fans of many things, you have probably been in a situation where you can recognize the quality and worth of a title, and even if it took a direction that you really didn't agree with, the sequel needs to then respect those fans and its legacy. It would be one thing if Veilguard actually tried to do this, but it actively took actions to erase the past that the players loved about this series. So yes, if you're going into a game to make a sequel, and you're like, the fans won't ever really like whatever we make, then you go and make your own thing instead of actually trying to please those fans, then yeah, this is probably going to piss a lot of people off. At one point in the article, they actually bring the discussion towards Varric and his death. The BioWare director said that they wanted to set the appropriate amount of stakes with Solus and what he was trying to do. It was early on that they decided that they wanted to actually kill Varric, and have that be a key reason for the player to have that emotional buy-in at the start. The directors even discussed that killing Varric off within the first 45 minutes of the game will be hugely impactful for those that have been with the series since Dragon Age 2, the game where Varric was introduced. But they were worried about new fans, because those new players playing a Dragon Age game for the first time with Veilguard would not have that much investment with Varric yet for a quick death at the start of the game. So the developers wanted to kill Varric, while also allowing the player to spend more time with him, which ultimately led to the version that we saw in the game. It is interesting to read this from some of the creatives within the team, and see that they wanted to kill Varric off so early in the game, and so very early on in the development of the game too. And it honestly shows that the rot that ultimately killed Veilguard, with the infection of poor and very bad writing, started at the very root of the game. I totally understand the dilemma that they were in, but the way in which they went about this makes the player feel so cheated, like it wasted everyone's time. Varric gets stabbed at the beginning of the game, and then the player gets to spend time with Varric, but no other party members interact with Varric as well, nor is there any questioning of who Rook is actually talking to, with Varric also being dead. Again, a disgraceful way to use this character, and even just trying to better what these creatives were actually trying to do here. If you wanted to build up to Varric's death, then have that happen significantly later in the game. Yes, let us spend time with him, the actual him, not some imaginary friend version of him. Let us have some memorable mini adventures and sequences with Varric. Then if you want to go the route of killing him off, which I still think is a very bad idea, at least it would appear like you actually put in the effort and put in the work to try and really earn those moments. The switcheroo twist that was done in this game is still one of the biggest things that I'm never going to be able to forgive with this title. This was a Herculean misstep in using this character. From reading this interview, it very much sounds like they had to ride that line between a new audience and legacy fans, and they chose wrong. They were concerned about new players more than really curating to their base. Those legacy fans, the people that have loved Dragon Age for a long time. I think this right here is why this game sort of feels like its own thing, and a soft reboot. This is probably why they made the choices that they did for the secret ending, with it sort of wiping away prior character motivations, in favor of a secret group and stuff like that. While I appreciate the insight from the interview that the directors did do here, it is very telling about the people who had the keys to this world that we love. They may think that they love this world, its characters and all their aspects, but in how everything was executed, I would argue that they really don't. At least it didn't really come across that way, based on the choices that they made with their writing and storytelling. Lastly, they did talk about how they could not comment on the sales of the game. They did like the reception critically that it received, but definitely on how they answered the sales comment shows that those sales are not good. And if they were good, then they could probably talk about them and boast about them here with it being so great. It kind of shows that many of those new fans that you were trying to cater to didn't really care for your game. The people that did care were the legacy fans of Dragon Age, but you ignored them and did not prioritize them with this game, when that is exactly what you should have done. What are your thoughts on all of this? Do you agree or disagree with any of my points? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.